Deborah, with her 30 years of being an entrepreneur and creating over 7 companies, knows exactly what it means to accept the mission. When you make that decision, when you accept the mission to become a solopreneur, to take yourself and your talents to market, then you embrace a life of not only unlimited possibilities, but also the unknown. It's an elixir of fear and bravery that only someone who's taken the leap really understands. On our show, Deb digs deep with her guests to highlight what you, the listener, wants to know. The stories, the whys, and the hows to navigate the journey to success. Get ready to hear from some of the most incredible mission takers from Generation Z to Boomers. So sit up, perk up, and get ready to be blown away. Now here is your host, Deborah Drummond.
Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. You know I don't like to use the same word twice, so I'm not going to say, I'm so excited to have you back. I am thrilled today because, you know, those days that you're going to bring a guest onto your show, and I know a lot of you out there have your own shows, and we got this cool podcast, Changing the World, you know, movement going on, and you bring someone on that you know that you would go and spend time with and go for dinner with and go for coffee with and hang out with and go do a retreat with, or that person that you know that if you saw at a retreat, you just end up having lunch together every day. That's how I feel about Kathleen. And it's so interesting. Isn't it interesting how this works? Because I was out on the balcony today because my neighbors were transforming. Once again, some of you would call it renovations. I'm calling it transforming because then I'll still give them a Christmas card. You know what I mean? But I was out and I was talking about this whole new thing that's coming into my world, right? Planning a retreat. And it's about kind of entrepreneurial sisters and holistic business. And I just love the combination. And then I run into my studio, and sure enough, it's the day for Kathleen to come share with us, who has had 30 years in C-suite, who has now transformed her life and transformed other women's lives as an intuitive guide for female leaders. When you think about holistic business, it's not novel anymore. It's really truly how we're starting to dig deep and get more successful in a way that's more fulfilling. So how incredible. You guys know you are the best podcast audience, and so do all my guests, because you just rock. Yeah. But today you are not only the best, but you are the most intuitive. So listen up, tune in today, like we all need to tune in every day and let Kathleen take you away with some of her great wisdom. And we're, triple goddess today, because she's going to be, there we go. They're transforming. So you're going to hear me put in my earbuds, you may not hear that, but I hear that. And we're going to have some transforming going on today. And how that's going to work is I'm going to just solve that problem right here. Okay. So Kathleen's going to take us through a 3-step process, but each process is so deep that we're going to do a 3-part series. I know, lucky you. 3 little leprechauns just hopped onto your breakfast bowl today. So Kathleen, welcome to the Mission Accepted podcast.
Thank you so much, Deb. And I so appreciate being here. And before we go on to anything, I just want to say thank you. Not only for me being on here, but something so much larger. This mission you've taken on with all of these women, all of these sisters coming together. I can't tell you what that does for my heart. I can say I've been around a while, not my first rodeo. This is the first project that I've seen anybody take on, and I'm sure you question yourself from time to time, but I am so behind you with your bravery and jumping out in this, and I just love it. Anybody out there that's not a part of it, you need to be a part of it in any way you can. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'll take that on because yes, of course, there's times where I'm like, I don't know what God was thinking. I'm like, let's have a little... Can we have can we have a second meeting on this project, please? So let's get right. Yeah, too late. We're in it. Let's talk about that, right? So this show's all about the mission and taking on the mission. Now, when I talk about 30 years C-suite leadership, more of a corporate lifestyle, and now intuitive guide for female leaders, I'm sure that made a few of your colleagues turn their head left or right. When did you decide to take this leap of mission?
Well, I would love to say that one day I sat down and sketched it all out and did the finances and then picked the day. I'd be less than truthful. Truth is, I knew I was coming to sort of an iconic birthday, if you will. And I thought, okay, when I hit this age, I'm going to get out. And so I was working with coaches of my own and framing that and seeing what that would look like for about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
January of that year came, and my big go date was going to be July. Well, I got scared. Don't know if that's ever happened to anybody out there. And so the mind started taking over, right? My husband still required my insurance. He's older than me. I was always sure I was going to be fine. And that's, what the plight of a woman, right? We're worried about everybody else. So that was the easiest for my brain to take over and say, oh, no, we need to wait another year. We were off by a year. I'll be more ready in a year. Well, you know how sometimes you get the little whisper from God that says, no, now's it. Well, I got the whisper, but my gosh, I was busy. I could not for 1 minute hear that whisper, right? So then I got the tap and I ignored that. I'm like, hey, I got things to do. And then I got the 2x4, right? Right upside the head. And it was like, boom, okay, you've got me. I hear you. I find myself pretty much laying on my living room floor. Every part of my body hurt. I had inflammation all through my body from the years and years of stress and overwork, right? So much inflammation that the retina in my left eye ripped. And it's not like I just realized that in my weeks of driving myself, I kept wiping my eye. I cleaned the windshield. I wanted it to be everything but me, but it was me. And there I was laying on my floor, looking around at all the things that I had. Because from the outside, right,
Mm-hmm.
it all looks so perfect. It was just glorious, right? I had the house, I had the kids, they all had college degrees, we went on trips. It looked, I'm sure, to everybody else that I had it all. And people would even say to me, how do you do all this? And my little monkey mind, I wouldn't spit it out, but I'd think it. I know how, but I don't know why. So I was always sort of had that inner voice fighting it. And I used to say, you know what, if you would work this hard for yourself, AKA be an entrepreneur, that you do for them, nothing would be, you'd never worry about anything. But in that moment, all the choices were taken away. I looked around and I'm like, seriously? Did I put myself through all these years for this stuff? Much of which was getting kind of old by then too. So it was like it seems like such a great thing to have done. But long story short is I went another 2 years trying to recover my body. Fortunately, the company that I worked with was a good company. They continued to pay me, and so that was okay. But putting me back together was a whole different ball game.
Wow.
And then, of course, yeah.
No, thank you for being transparent, because there is that I love when you said the plight of a woman, and there is an internal, particularly when you are entrepreneurial or inspiration or creative, there is energy that just surges. There's energy that comes, right. And we tend to be in expel mode a lot of the time. And we do have a sense of, ooh, I'm a little more tired this morning than I thought I was. But it is the plight of a woman. And, not to negate that men don't have their own monkeys on their
Sure.
drive to provide and their drive to not show weakness and all that kind of stuff. But there definitely is an expelling that is hard to, like, the scale of that gets pretty tough. It gets pretty tough.
It did.
So there you were. And now you do, obviously, this intuitive work that you do for female leaders comes from a very, obviously a deep place of knowingness. And you talk about how, I love the word, the success trap, right? Because it can be, a lot of people, it can be illusionary. It can be illusionary and it can be real at the same time. So that's tough. It's tough to coach yourself, which I love how you said that you had coaches and you coach and I coach and I have coaches, and that's just the way it should be. But tell us about, I know that you've formulated it into kind of 3 pieces, and let's dig a little deep into the first piece today, which I know you talked about clarifying. So a lot of times we hear about get clear, clarify. What does that mean, and how do you work that within your system?
Well, sure. Everybody thinks, you need, and I have vision in my work, and, and everybody talks about getting that vision, and people tend to go toward that vision board. Right. And
Yeah.
I've been to a vision board party, and I'm not knocking it. I've actually held a vision board party. They're a great starter. But what I'm talking about when I talk about clarify, I'm talking about heart and soul. What is it that you want in all key areas of your life? Because as I laid there and as I put myself back together, I realized I had just been doing what I had been taught to do. I had wanted what I was taught to want, what I was told to want, right? And I just reacted accordingly. And so I had to really stop and say, okay, this is, while it was not a pleasant time, it was also in my mind a gift. So it was kind of like, okay, so how do we put this back together? I'd love to say that it just came down from the heavens and everything about me was willing to accept it. But what really happened, right? I did what most of us do. I continued the search. I went out with every guru. I was a seminar, I don't want to say junkie, but I was a regular attendee, let's say that. And I was studying, and I love to study, and I love knowledge. So when I want to know something, I pick up a book, or I go hear somebody talk, and that's just what I do today even. So I did all that, and I would try to implement what they were, prescribing, and I would have some success, and I would have moments of, okay, this is where I'm headed. And I had the honeymoon success of the entrepreneur, which I now claimed that. First it was just really easy. I went out and I became a consultant, and I was working with business owners, and I had no problem, increasing their bottom lines and because that's what I did for forever. But it was super unfulfilling. And I was kind of like, okay, all the work is in the mind, right? I think we hear 90% of success is in the mindset. Same is true for failure. I found out. So I was like, well, literally more than $100,000 later, as I invested in myself, not invested in them, I was fully investing in me. I still didn't feel like I had the answer. And so a little bit like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, right? Clicking my heels, the answer was within me all the time. So I started looking at like all the areas of my life, and I started really realizing, sounds silly, because I just was so reactionary all those years and so driven, that I started to realize, they're all intertwined. And when any one of those pieces, whether it be the health, the finance, the relationships, or any of the key, social life, whatever the pieces are, when any of them were off, my wheel wasn't running. And so that's kind of how I took it apart. And I sort of started mind mapping and listing what is important to me. So clarify came down to not just, hey, what do I want? The new car, the new this, the new that, but what do I want? Heart and soul. What feeds me, heart and soul, in all of those key areas? And that was quite a journey. And so that led into the clearing, right? Because what was coming to me didn't always line up with everything that I thought I always wanted, or I was taught to want, right? So that's when I started to question the beliefs that I had, and where did I get that belief, and why am I still hanging on to it at 50 plus years old? Why do I feel the need to go back to something that was true when I was 20, or I thought was true when I was 20? So I was able to sort of clear out, really challenge and release what I didn't feel like fit in.
So yeah, I was gonna say, let's unpack that a little bit, because let's unpack that a little bit. So so you're talking, for people to get clarity. So I'm just trying to get a visual did you do that through writing? Like, I mean, so when you said that you got information or you challenged your beliefs, is that when you brought in a coach? Is it like you wrote down everything that you thought that you should be doing, and then you're like, so just a little bit on that process of how you got clear.
Sure. I had coaches and experts, and I was studying, at any given time I had 2-3 mentors, because I was looking at a lot of areas, and because I knew I wasn't whole if I couldn't get them all in that wheel to work, right? That's what I had already decided. So the first thing was I went back to my skill, right? So the first thing was to assess, where are you and where do you really want to be? That took some time to fill out. So so once I figured out, let's just say in, relationships, what was important to me, then it was like, well, how close are you? And what is it that's keeping you from being there? And another sort of, I don't want to say curse of a woman, but things that we take on is we take on old standards, right? And this is just maybe a good example, but I was raised to work hard, and and I'm grateful for that every day. But however, it got in the way of a lot of things, right? So I'll just talk about the holidays. Holidays added just one more dimension, right? And I love the holidays, right? So I'm going to be that most decorated house. I'm going to have company constantly. I'm loving it. But at the end of it, by the time we actually get to the event, I'm pretty tired, right? So I started to say, well, do I want to give that up? No, I didn't want to give that up, but maybe I looked at what it was why was I so exhausted? Well, because I had this belief that literally you had to scrub the walls and clean every speck of the house before you could put your decorations up. One year I just got really brave. What happened if what happened if I just, my house isn't a disaster. So what if I just went ahead and decorated it and clean it when I take it down? Well, you guess what? Who cared about that? Not a soul. Not a soul but me, right?
Yeah.
The same thing, if you just think of your traditions, while they're wonderful, and if they bring you joy, by all means, hang on to them. If they're a burden, I finally got to a point where I gave myself permission to let go of that. So then guess what? The whole event was better. The whole season was better. The relationships were better. Nobody wants to get a present from somebody who's stressed out. You want to bring your love and your joy and everything that you have about you with that. And when you can do that in all those areas, or all the areas of your life, when it comes to the work piece, guess what you bring to your work? You bring a better you, right? So It seems so simple. But finding out what you want, not so simple. There's a stat out there that I found staggering, and that is less than 2% of the world population can say right out loud, what is it I want?
Wow.
Really? And guess what? Right? And that 2% is really what makes up the 1% of the 1%ers that we like to talk about, right? Because they're clear, they know what they're going after. And the thing that comes with that well, first of all, for clarity, I found it easier to figure out what I didn't want.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very helpful, Kathleen. That's very helpful. You didn't want to be exhausted during the holidays. Therefore, you looked at what you could do to alter that. You wanted to have a better experience. Yeah. So I think it's as important. I think it's as important.
It's so important what you take away. Yeah. Because, and you take that into every area of your life. I call it my social life or my extended relationships, right? Who's in your life that's just not contributing to your life? We've all had it time the takers, and I'm not suggesting to anybody there are no throwaways in life. Believe me, no people are throwaways, and there's no perfect people. However, I was able to shift some of those relationships and not be everybody's hero. Because the truth is, when I got gut-wrenching honest with myself, it wasn't as much about them as it was about me. And I started to ask myself what turned out to be a pretty prophetic question. And that was, what are you getting out of this? Right? So while I would think in my head, oh my gosh, she's calling again, or he's calling again, I'm going to hear. And it was kind of like, yeah, really? So what are you getting out of that? You're perpetuating this relationship in this fashion. And so it's sort of, back to that balance of what do you want, what do you don't want? And it was like, okay, so I found ways to gently, change the conversation, change the, shorten the time, and people are smart, they catch on, they're like, okay, if I call and just complain, she's going to get off the phone with me. Let's have some fun instead. And I would even use those words. I would say, hey, you know what, today, instead of solving the world's problems, let's just imagine, and it kind of became fun, and it kind of changed the conversations. I also looked at the kind of people that were in my life, sort of, who do you need in your life? Who's your supporter? Maybe you don't have that. Maybe spend more time, maybe give them more support. So it's a give and take. So that was kind of it. I went through literally every key area. Finance is a big piece. People are terrified, or you either are on, I feel like I find two people. You're either fully aware of it, that's your jazz, you go for it, or you're an avoider. And so it was kind of like, which am I? And what do I need to be? And what role did, plus being,
Yep.
a leader all my life, I thought I had to be in charge of everything. Amazing. I didn't. And the world has not fallen apart,
Yeah.
So a lot of it was that clarifying came in having the guts to be true with myself and really looking at things for the way they are and the way they interacted with everything. And
Awesome.
piece by piece, I found me. Yeah.
That that's a great finale. Piece by piece, I found me. I think that the listeners just, because we're all on a journey, and sometimes we feel really on point. And I think it's natural when you get tired or other things going on in your life to question other areas of your life. By most
Sure.
by most entrepreneurs that I talk to, we don't question the fact that we're being an entrepreneur, but sometimes we get lost in being an entrepreneur, right? I think,
For sure.
and there's so many opportunities that come forward. The more successful you get a lot more opportunities, and then you have to learn how to weave through those and stay true to purpose. So
Yeah.
I'm excited for your next class. I know that we're going to be digging a little bit more into how to get clear. So listeners are going to have to come back and get clear. It's going to be part 2, Kathleen. But before we sign off today, thank you for that. I think there was some really great instructional things that people can take away. But let's just kind of do exactly that. Just kind of shake up the jelly bean bag or what have you, and ask you. I always find it interesting, and I think there's a lot of power in words and what we put out there. So outside of your business, maybe, or inside your business, whatever comes to you. But if you were to, like, you have a treasure map, you talk about, treasure maps or vision boards, or you write it on the wall or something, or bucket list. What's something that you have
Sure.
that you are wanting to accomplish? What is something that's on your bucket list that's still yet to be checked off?
Well, it's not so much a thing anymore.
Yep.
After a while, you've done a lot, you've been a lot of places, and I feel super, super blessed. My vision, my bucket list, right now, what really charges me up is the vision that women can come forward as their authentic self and be accepted, and a lot of that is accepting yourself as well. But they can come forward and take their place where they need to be, because the big picture is we need women. Women are amazing leaders. Women are the head of the household. So leader can come in, you work in somebody else's business, you run your own business, your church, your home, whatever it is, we're all leaders. And it's time to stand up and take that responsibility. The world needs us in a really strong way. So I envision a world where women can come up with complete confidence in everything that they do and still enjoy their life. So that for me would be like the best thing that could happen, is to see women become who they want to be and who they need to be.
That's awesome. It's interesting. I was talking to a woman yesterday, and we were talking about that in a certain business sector that we've both spent a lot of time with. And a half an hour conversation turned into 2.5 hours about that. And it's all about, and it was all about the emergence of women in that sector and what it's been like. And it's time to talk about that, because if we don't talk about that, then it doesn't get different. So I so agree with you. So look, I'm really looking forward to you coming back and sharing with us. There is a question that I'm going to ask you. And even though you're going to spend 3 times with us, you're like, I don't know if I'm going to, it's going to be easy for you, because you're like, well, there's a couple of more, episodes coming. And by nature, this is how we finish off the show. First of all, we're going to put all your information in the show notes. So if you want to spend some time with Kathleen, she is going to be speaking, and she is part of the 262. So you are going to see her in full spread in the 262 entrepreneur book that is launched on International Women's Day. Obviously, she has a love for that very strongly through what she's shared with us today. And then she's going to also be doing an incredible presentation. So just hop on to debdrummond.com and go over to the events page and just hook up. It is a free worldwide event for women and people that support women. So all of that aside, you're on your way to a desert island. I know you've traveled many, but this time you're going to a desert island and you're going on your own. and you're taking one suitcase. And in that suitcase, you have room for one album. And that's it. This is your, this is your last trip. There's a beautiful record player there on this desert island. There's enough electricity to plug it in. What album would you take with you?
I like a lot of music, and depending on the mood, you want different things, but something that's been with me for those decades. And I have this always sits on my desk. So if I'm going to an island, I'm going to take my own soccer ball to talk to. And if you can see on there, it says Rod Stewart. And, my very first job in the dress mall, or in the mall in the little dress shop, my manager played Rod Stewart. And I think the album would have been Storyteller. The Maggie Mays, the Killing of Georgie, and I think I'm a storyteller, and I think that's why Rod Stewart's always spoke to me. And everybody that knows me, if there's a song that comes on and it's Rod singing it, the whole room will stop and say, he's singing to Kathleen. Because I say that, I own it every time that this man is singing to me. So yeah, without a doubt, Rod would be coming with me.
Well, you know what? I think I want to add to your bucket list. I think we want to send out to the universe that Kathleen would like to have lunch, have dinner, spend some time after the show with Rod Stewart. I think that someone out there knows Rod, and I think someone out there could put you together for a wonderful, maybe charity event or something of the such. I know he's touring right now in North America. So you may want to, because I've heard him I've seen him with all the women screaming, and not too long ago, right? I was like, oh, different generation of women are screaming now. But
that was me several decades.
Yeah, I'm just going to add that to your bucket list. Kathleen, thank you so much for spending time with us today on Mission Accepted. And we're going to be bringing you back and talking about that second level of the success trap. And that's all about getting clear and how to get clear. And you guys, you intuitive listeners out there, thank you so much for everything you do. Thank you for being a part of this mission. And I'm going to, like I did, send you to debdrummond.com. If you want to be on the other side, we're sitting where Kathleen is, and you want to come onto the show, we want to hear from you. So until we talk again, you be well and you stay groovy. Gravy? Is someone making dinner? Just to let you know, we don't edit on this show. So when I mess up, that's what happens. So someone go have gravy, and the rest of you be groovy. Okay, bye for now.